Attention, clergy of Brazil. An urgent message that cannot be delayed. On June 12th, a meeting took place with 2,000 clerics from the Diocese of Rome. But the words spoken there are directed with particular force to the priests serving in Brazil. What was said to the Roman clergy takes on even greater significance in the context of the unique challenges faced by Brazilian priests. This is not merely an instruction, but a sincere appeal that sees in Brazilian priests the hope for the entire church. The words that will be shared have the power to transform ministry and the future of evangelization in Latin America. To all presbyters and deacons serving in the dioceses of Brazil, profound love and fraternal support are extended. This address comes not only from the Pope, but as a brother in the priestly vocation, one who understands the joys and difficulties of pastoral ministry in Brazil. Above all, gratitude is expressed for a life dedicated to serving the kingdom of God in this blessed land. Gratitude for daily efforts, often unnoticed, for generosity in fulfilling duties, even when resources are limited and challenges seem insurmountable. For everything that happens in the silence of the confessional, during visits to the sick, in long journeys to serve remote communities, sometimes accompanied by suffering, loneliness, and misunderstanding. The unique characteristics of priestly ministry in Brazil are well known. Priests traverse hundreds of kilometers in the Amazon to bring the Eucharist to riverside communities. They serve in the peripheries of large cities, where the threat of violence is constant, yet faith also flourishes. We recall priests from the hinterlands, caring for multiple parishes with limited resources, but with immense pastoral hearts. These brothers are true missionaries in a land of mission. Brazil, despite its rich Catholic traditions, today faces unique evangelization challenges: the growth of other religious denominations, the accelerated secularization of large cities, and deep social problems requiring a holistic pastoral response. Therefore, the first word is one of deep gratitude and recognition. Priests are the anonymous heroes of the gospel, builders of the kingdom of God in Brazilian soil. Every Mass, every sacrament, every consolation, every word of hope is a brick in the construction of a civilization of love in the heart of Brazil. The first aspect to emphasize is the vital importance of presbyteral communion. It is crucial to remember that the Church in Brazil leads the continental evangelization mission. This is possible only through priests, through the bond of grace with bishops, and through fruitful co-responsibility with all the Brazilian people of God. However, we must honestly acknowledge the challenges threatening this communion. Today, fraternal communion is hindered by a cultural climate that favors isolation and self-sufficiency. No one is immune to these traps that threaten spiritual life and the strength of pastoral ministry. In Brazil, these challenges take on particular characteristics. Vast geographical distances can contribute to the physical isolation of many priests. The country's cultural and social diversity sometimes creates barriers to communion among presbyters from different regions. Pastoral overload, where many priests care for several communities simultaneously, can lead to exhaustion and introversion. There are also internal obstacles to ecclesial life, especially a feeling of weariness arising from particular difficulties, the burden of managing parishes with limited resources, frustration due to excessive bureaucracy, and the strain of resolving social conflicts. Sometimes priests do not feel understood by their bishops, or heard in their real pastoral needs. In this regard, a direct appeal is made to the heart of every Brazilian priest. It is necessary to restore serenity in ministry. This requires a new impetus in presbyteral fraternity. This brotherhood is rooted in a firm spiritual life, in a personal and daily encounter with the Lord, and in constant listening to His word. Without this, there is a risk of becoming religious functionaries instead of people of God, church administrators instead of pastors after the heart of Christ. It is necessary to create regular spaces for fraternal meetings, organize joint retreats, share pastoral experiences, successes and failures, and support each other, especially in moments of crisis. It should be remembered that pastoral loneliness is not a virtue, but a danger that can lead to discouragement and even abandonment of one's vocation. Beloved brother priest of Brazil, I now address you with a paternal and pastoral heart to touch upon a matter of paramount importance. I sincerely urge each of you to strive to be priests worthy of trust and to be examples for others to follow. This exhortation is dictated not by a perfectionist view of the vocation, but by a deep awareness of the exceptional grace that has been bestowed upon you. An invaluable treasure has been entrusted to you, and you are its ministers and stewards. And from a servant, faithfulness is required, not flawlessness. Faithfulness to the original calling that once touched your soul. Faithfulness to the people whom God has entrusted to your pastoral care. Faithfulness to the church that gave birth to you in faith and called you to service. In the Brazilian context, this faithfulness takes on special characteristics. The Brazilian people have a special affection for their priests, filled with trust, respect, and love, which is a true pastoral treasure. However, this closeness makes any infidelity or scandal even more grievous a sin. When a priest in Brazil fails in his mission, it affects not only his personal destiny, but also undermines the faith of entire communities, especially those who are simple of heart, and see in the priest a visible embodiment of God. Therefore, your responsibility is immense, but equally great is the grace bestowed upon you to bear this burden worthily. The modern Brazilian city, with its diversity of temptations, can distract you from striving for a holy life, pushing you towards compromises where the profound values of priestly ministry are lost. Consumerism, individualism, entertainment culture, the pursuit of social status. All these temptations incessantly knock at the door of the priestly heart. But I urge you, dear brothers, to remember the power of your initial calling. Allow yourselves to be rekindled with love for the Lord. Return to those feelings and experiences that overwhelmed you in the first hour, to that love that prompted you to make such a decisive choice and boldly renounce so much on the day of your ordination. Remember that moment when you first felt the call. Perhaps it happened during Mass in your childhood parish, or at a youth retreat, or upon seeing a priest whose sermon deeply moved your heart. That initial fire has not extinguished. It may be hidden beneath the ashes of routine, fatigue, disappointments, but it is still alive. Fan these ashes with prayer, silence, and rediscover the beauty of your vocation. The third important theme I wish to highlight for you, priests of Brazil, is a prophetic gaze at the contemporary challenges facing your homeland. I am aware of the suffering you experience when witnessing the injustice, violence, and marginalization pervading Brazilian reality. You are wounded by acts of violence that claim lives in the peripheries of large cities. You are concerned by glaring social inequality, poverty contrasting with ostentatious luxury, and numerous forms of social exclusion that corrode Brazilian society. You empathize with the suffering that takes the form of social distress, sparing no social class, no region of the country. Consider Brazil's specific problems: urban violence, which predominantly victimizes poor and black young people, corruption, diverting resources that should reach the most needy, environmental destruction, threatening the Amazon and other valuable biomes, the crisis of the traditional family, the spread of drugs and organized crime, forced migration destroying traditional communities. Recalling the extraordinary beauty of Brazil, its delightful landscapes, its rich cultural heritage, its unique biodiversity, I must repeat the words of my predecessor, Pope Francis. Brazil's immense natural and cultural wealth must correspond to simple decency and normal functioning in the places and situations of every Brazilian's daily life. But here is the essence of my prophetic message to you. These challenges are not obstacles to evangelization. They represent the very place where God calls us to meet Him and serve Him. We are called to embrace them, interpret them in the light of the gospel, and live them as a unique opportunity for witness. Do not flee from them. The Brazilian priest is called to be a prophet in the biblical sense of the word, one who reads reality with God's eyes, who denounces what contradicts the kingdom of heaven, who proclaims hope even in the most hopeless situations. This means you cannot be content with a pastoral ministry of preservation, limiting yourselves only to those already converted. You must go beyond, venture to the existential and geographical peripheries, meet with those rejected by society, and give voice to the voiceless. This also means you must educate the people in the spirit of responsible citizenship, social activism, and the pursuit of building a more just society. Christian faith is not an escape from reality, but a transformative force capable of changing the course of human history. Dear brothers, Brazil is experiencing a unique moment in its church history. On one hand, it remains one of the countries with the largest Catholic population in the world. On the other hand, it faces unprecedented challenges: the growing influence of other Christian denominations, the spread of secularization, and changing worldviews among new generations. In these circumstances, you are called to be the main protagonists of a new evangelization, adapted to the Brazilian reality. This requires pastoral creativity, openness to new languages, and the ability to dialogue with contemporary culture without betraying the essence of the gospel. The modern Brazilian priest is called to combine a deep commitment to Catholic traditions with a sincere integration into Brazilian reality. He needs to be familiar with Brazil's rich popular piety, which finds vibrant expression in religious festivals, pilgrimages, and devotion to the Virgin Mary. The priest's task is to skillfully purify and guide these expressions of faith without destroying their unique character. Furthermore, the priest must understand the aspirations and language of new generations of Brazilians, especially young people who have grown up in the digital age. These young people think in new ways, asking questions that perhaps did not occur to their parents. The Brazilian church needs priests who can be bridges, connecting tradition and modernity, faith and culture, contemplation and active engagement, the local and the universal. Special attention should be given to the pastoral care of Brazilian families, It is well known what difficulties families in Brazil face today. Economic pressure forcing both spouses to work late, leaving little time for family, the influence of a culture that questions traditional values, the fragility of marital bonds, and difficulties in raising children. Brazilian families need priests who become true spiritual fathers, accompanying spouses not only at the moment of marriage, but throughout their entire life together. Priests must be able to guide young people in preparing for mature love, find words of mercy for those who are struggling, and pastorally embrace wounded families with tenderness. It is important to remember that priests are often the only stable father figures some children and young people know. This responsibility is immense, but it also provides a unique opportunity to be an instrument of divine fatherhood. We cannot fail to mention the fundamental call to priestly holiness. Priests are chosen not only to perform a ministry, but to live a holy life that testifies to God's presence in the world. Priestly holiness in the Brazilian context has its own characteristics. It is a holiness embodied in life nourished by prayer and expressed in concrete service. It is a joyful holiness reflecting the vivacity of the Brazilian people. It is a courageous holiness, not shying away from conflicts and pastoral challenges. And finally, it is a Marian holiness. The Brazilian priest must have a special devotion to the Virgin Mary, whom the Brazilian people love with filial tenderness. Our Lady of Aparecida, Our Lady of Nazareth, Our Lady of Carmel. There are many Marian devotions that accompany the faith of the Brazilian people. May Mary educate priests in spiritual life, in love for Christ, and in dedication to the people of God. In conclusion, priests of Brazil should remember the importance of unity among themselves and with their bishops, the necessity of being role models so that their words are trustworthy, and a prophetic commitment in the face of the challenges of the times and of their homeland. It is necessary to entrust your priestly life to the Lord and ask for His help in strengthening unity, exemplary conduct, and prophetic commitment to service in Brazil and the universal church in this time of grace. According to the words of St. Augustine, which are especially relevant for those serving the church in Brazil, love the Brazilian church, remain in it, and be it. Love the Good Shepherd, the beautiful bridegroom, who deceives no one and desires no one to be lost. Pray for the lost sheep of the Brazilian flock, that they may come, recognize and love, so that there may be one flock and one shepherd in this blessed land. May Our Lady of Aparecida, Mother and Patroness of Brazil, intercede for every priest, protect and console them in difficult moments, and fill them with joy in the daily fulfillment of their pastoral ministry.